Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Enterprising Individuals, the Star Trek discussion podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about the series, characters, and stories of the Star Trek universe. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and remember, the password is Fidelio. I'm joined on this episode by Alex White. Alex is a writer and the author of the Salvagers trilogy and the sci-fi murder mystery Every Mountain Made Low, as well as the Alien franchise tie-in novels The Cold Forge and Into Charybdis. Alex's latest book, Revenant, is set during the events of the Deep Space Nine series and will be out in December of this year. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I'm really excited.
It's great to have you. Permission to come aboard granted. Today we'll be talking about Equilibrium, the fourth episode of the third season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. The citizens of the Federation have it pretty good. After all, they live in a future society free from greed and want, where they can witness the wonders of the universe, and barring any spacefaring mishaps or transporter accidents, they can live long and fulfilling lives. Those lives do, however, eventually come to an end, but a select privileged few, the joined Trill, see their lives go on for hundreds or perhaps thousands of years, accruing new...
No one knows.
Yes, who knows? We don't know. Accruing new skills and connections and experiencing every benefit from a multitude of enlightened societies. But not every Trill humanoid is capable of being joined, and most are relegated to maintaining the system that supports a fortunate, near-immortal few. And one must wonder what frustrations that fact might create in a populace, even one as privileged and provided for as the Federation. But we'll talk about that a little later in the show. First, Alex, it's great to have you on the show, and I always ask first-time guests to the podcast how they first discovered Star Trek. How did you become a Star Trek fan?
It was because it was one of these like up all night kind of like I could like my sister and I, it was the weekend, we'd been allowed to just stay up as late as we wanted.
Yeah.
And original season was on.
Yeah.
The very first series. And I want to say it was like the Red Jack episode.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Wolf in the Fold.
Yeah, Wolf in the Fold. That's it. On Argelius. Yeah. And I was really like we turned to it and we were just like, we were kids and we were crappy and we were just crapping on it. You know, we're like, sure. Look at these effects. My grandpa didn't know anything. You know, kind of like but the longer I watched it, I was like, but let's watch another one. You know, so I can keep crapping on it.
Sure.
And then I watched another one, and I was like, "This is great."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it was one of those things where it's a product of its time, but like, I don't care because there's so many bits that still draw you in. I will say I was not expecting the twist that it was just a trans-dimensional being possessing people.
Oh, that's all it was. Yeah.
that doesn't seem like quite the same quality of locked door mystery as I'm used to nowadays.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Who could have expected, Jack the Ripper, of course. Yeah.
I love this throwaway line in there in Wolf in the Fold how they're like, we used to torture the crap out of people. We used to love torturing. That was actually like our favorite thing. Anyway, I'm the governor. We're all nice now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Things totally
talk about
enjoy a belly dance. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Everybody have fun.
Yeah, it's interesting because all those older original series episodes come from that earlier era of sci-fi. And sure, there was hard sci-fi like back then, but that line between sci-fi and fantasy was a lot more blurry, I think. And a lot of your work kind of espouses that view as well. You know, you've got science fiction, you've got magic, you've got all these things. Do you think that we don't need a hard line between those two things, do we?
I don't feel like that. I mean, I do. I think that the rules of the universe should be clear. So, like, if there's magic in the universe, then you should be like, listen, this is the type of place that's got a little magic in it.
Sure.
You know, but I think that if you're, I think when you're just like, actually, there's a trans-dimensional being, you know, like, okay, good for example here is, everybody's like, I love the hard science in Star Trek.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks Star Trek and science and everything. And I'm like, episode 1 of Deep Space Nine, the dude gets kidnapped by God.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right? Episode 1 of Next Generation, the dude has a chess game with a different God.
Yeah. Yeah, Roddenberry loved throwing God into all these things, and he reportedly hated God, so he's working something out.
Yeah. I mean, but that's, maybe it's like a Roddenberry extension of Clark's dictum that any sufficiently advanced tech is indistinguishable from magic. Like any sufficiently powerful being is indistinguishable from God.
Yeah, possibly. I wonder what he thought about Star Trek Five, where they literally meet God or somebody who claims that he's God.
Right. Well, I mean, there are a lot of people who could claim that in Star Trek, though. I mean,
That's true. Who is God really in Star Trek?
right. That is a non-zero number of
Yeah,
people.
that is a lot of people. Something that we've been exploring on this show throughout its life, but certainly a lot lately, is the fact that for supposedly the most progressive and diverse franchise in sci-fi, Star Trek has been pretty straight and pretty white for most of its history. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's changing to a degree recently, but there's still a ways to go. And as somebody who sits at the crossroad of several identities, do you think that Star Trek is doing enough to be diverse? And did you get inspiration from Star Trek as you were growing up?
Oh, I absolutely got inspiration from Star Trek as I was growing up.
Yeah.
I can kind of start with that one. It's weird because unless you have the language to describe the cage you're in, it's hard to understand the boundaries of it.
Mhm.
And I think that developing things like queer theory were instrumental to me coming to grips with myself, but those were things that I had prepped for me by science fiction and fantasy. It's one of the major reasons I'm a science fiction writer, and it is the reason I came out.
Yeah.
Um, is because I want some other kid to know that it's okay. You don't have to be scared. You know,
Yeah.
it's weird out here. Check it. It's actually pretty fun though.
Sure.
That's the idea, and so I want to be there for the next kid, and I think that Jadzia was definitely like that for me because the idea of going through kind of multiple lives, right?
Sure.
And being a mother and a husband and like all these
Yeah.
wildly different things certainly has impacted that character, and they make reference to it a lot, but usually they'll be like, gosh, ever since I got to be a woman it takes me longer to get ready.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's from before you understood this character at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. The audience perception of that character has grown by leaps and bounds. Whether or not, like you were
Oh,
saying,
sure.
the writing of the character deserves it, but like, when I was a kid and we were watching it, we were like, oh yeah, she's got a worm in her belly. Okay, that's cool. But people
Right.
see her, I think, for what she is. So many different groups hold on to her as like a sort of totem for who they are and their identity. And whether or not that was intended, that's the beauty of science fiction. I mean, it can do that for you.
Right. It's a metaphor.
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
I know, and I love that about it. That's my favorite thing about it.
Yeah.
It's that you can say these big important things, and people, if if you want to listen, you can hear it. But if you don't want to listen, you can look at the explosions.
Right. Yes.
Just that's the thing about my books is, I hate it when people are like, oh yeah, I like your books because you don't really shove our faces in it. And I'm like,
Jeez.
I'm not shoving your face
Just
in
not
it.
getting it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just you can't hear the signal,
I-
and that's okay because it's not for you.
Yeah.
But like I do want people to feel invited to my world,
Yeah.
and I want them to, and Star Trek is not at all my world, and we can get into that.
Sure.
It's interesting. It's a strange place to write. I love it. I had a good time, but it definitely you can't write it like everything else. If you do, you're gonna screw it up completely.
Before we talk about your Trek work, let's talk about some of your non-Trek work,
thank you.
specifically the Salvagers series and the
Yes.
first book of the series, A Big Ship at the Edge of the Universe, includes this.
Everyone makes that mistake, and I always say the same thing. Oh no, the restaurant's at the end.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it includes this list of things: a washed-up treasure hunter, a hotshot racer, a legendary lost ship, a secret society, science, magic. I'm hoping that the Pan-Galactic Racing Federation is a Hitchhiker's Guide reference.
It it is not. I'm sorry. I just I really love racing
Sure.
and graphic design, and I you know I really enjoy these old racing posters from like the 70s and stuff like that. And I was looking at the Pan American ads from around the same time, and one thing kind of overlaid another is really.
Yeah.
But I love that kind of feeling, and I wanted to create a name that I felt like a designer would get and go, oh, I got to do this.
Okay, that's gonna look great on a poster.
Right, exactly. I want you to feel like you could see it if you needed to.
Who are your influences specifically when you're writing, your own personal sci-fi?
Oh yeah. Uh, I really love Cowboy Bebop.
Mm,
Obviously, I mean,
mm-hmm.
and like you can see it written pretty large on a bunch of my writing. And it's not, I try to avoid some of the more superhuman stuff. Though I will say that in the Salvagers, several members of the crew, well, everybody has magic in that universe. Everyone except the one of the two main characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I sure there are some superhuman feats, but by and large, these people need an inhaler if they run a mile.
Okay, sure,
Like,
yeah.
it's not quite the same as like a lot of things. And so one of the things that I appreciated that about Cowboy Bebop, because at every fight I was like, yeah, let's get in with a single bullet. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Plus, they all smoke, so they're always running around, and it's like they should be totally out of breath all the time.
Right. Oh, I know. So let's see here. Other influences. I mean, I read a lot of the tie-ins when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't remember any of them.
Yeah. I remember. I didn't read a lot of them. I read one. I had one that was by Peter David, and I read it like cover to cover, over and over again. And then I got to meet Peter David finally at a couple of cons when we still had cons. And he must have thought I was crazy, but I just said, like, I have to thank you for this one book that you read, because it just really kept me in the way that, like, Star Trek and the books and the extra material kept people alive. When there was no Star Trek on TV, it's like, this is just, I kept reading this book.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, yeah. If I was a tie-in novelist and somebody was like, your tie-in moved me, I'd be like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I am a tie-in novelist.
Well, you are now. Yeah.
If somebody says that to me about one of my alien books or my Star Trek book, I would be like, wow, that's great.
Usually people are talking about how depressed and scared your alien books are making them.
Yeah, I felt kind of guilty. My dad called me and he was like, yeah, I had a lot of nightmares last night after reading the book. And I was like, what? It's not real, right?
Right. It's just a book. It can't hurt you.
See, the problem is there's a lot of real stuff in there. And so the great thing about writing for Alien is that you live here already.
Yeah.
The idea, Ellen Ripley, she's a flight officer who left her 4-year-old on Earth for like a 2-year mission or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe those numbers are reversed. But either way, she never sees Amanda again.
Mm-hmm.
And then goes and gets eaten, kind of uninsured, or almost gets eaten, and then gets back, and they're worried about the insurance.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because it's like it's a dystopia, even though they've got advanced technology and space flight and they're colonizing the galaxy. It's what you said. If there's huge corporations dehumanizing people, everybody's arguing about shares or their insurance, and they're putting their bodies and their safety on the line for work. It's a real criticism of capitalism. Yet, like what we mentioned with Star Trek, I'm pretty sure that most people who enjoy alien fiction don't see the parallels to our modern world.
It is funny when I point it out, and the Cold Forge was written about the way that the world kind of attacks disabled people, and by the way it's invented.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the way that hypercapitalism further destroys and dehumanizes disabled people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to unpack there, and you have this character who just kind of refuses to give up on the idea of a cure.
Yeah.
And she just doesn't want to die of a terminal illness. And so that's why she's researching the alien at the beginning of the Cold Forge.
Yeah.
And everybody is always like, oh, why, that's so stupid. They're weaponizing the alien. It's another laboratory weaponizing the alien story. We all know what happens, and then they read it and it's like, really, I always joke, but I'm not joking. The book's about insurance.
Yeah.
The book's about the healthcare system in the United States and how much it sucks and how much it's determined the shape of my adult life.
Huh.
And hopefully when you read it, you can hear that.
Yeah. That's so, I mean, the fact even that they would criticize that, oh, the corporations are doing it again, that is a criticism of corporations today. I totally believe that Weyland Yutani or whoever would keep trying to get their hands on this alien so they can make some money off of it.
It is true that until it touches one of them personally, nothing will happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
And I yeah. Anyway, we could talk Alien all day, but that's definitely not what we're here for.
Yeah, well, I guess not. I just wanted to mention that the Cold Forge is set in 2179, which I think is the same year that Aliens takes place. So that's a busy year for the Alien franchise.
It's also the year that Alien 3 takes place.
Really?
So all three of those.
Oh, that's that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pivotal year.
The setup for the Cold Forge is essentially like this. Burke already knew when she was coming in to look for treasure.
Yeah.
He already had some advance notice of what that could be. And I think they held on to her for longer than they say, even maybe. But that's neither here nor there. What matters is he applied for authorization to do experiments and to investigate the derelict.
Mm-hmm.
And the governance board said, no, because you're not the right person to do that. You're, sorry, Paul,
Yeah.
And his name's Carter.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, Carter. But what if there was a backup project that already just went in there immediately, got some eggs, took them somewhere else, and because there's no reason why they couldn't source the eggs already. And so this is the story of a project correctly run that was destroyed. Well, you gotta read it to find out.
Yeah,
but
pay the fee.
I refuse to write a character that does something that you outright disagree with.
Interesting.
So I don't mean like reprehensible.
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay, I'm gonna write that character, sure. But a character who's like, should I split up with my friends who have the flashlight to investigate the noise? I don't want to write that character ever.
Yeah.
I want you to read my Alien book, and the scientists will keep their helmets on.
Yeah,
And you're just like, wow, I feel bad. That guy actually seemed pretty competent.
Yeah.
I would definitely die in that situation too, and now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that makes it scarier. Yeah.
Now, I'm so afraid of The Ring and The Grudge in a way that horror has never scared me. Gothic horror never scared me. But the fact is that it's like being attacked by a television in a suburban house is terrifying.
Yeah, and you're a video engineer too.
Right.
You're killed by that thing that you make your living on.
Oh yes, I used to do that. I no longer do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow,
you've really done some homework on me.
Well, I just want one more alien question, if it's okay, about your second book, Into Charybdis. We know that the world of Alien it's not a united one; it's a corporatocracy, but there's divisions of state. And your second novel concerns a political dispute between the United Americas and Iran and their interest in space. So, two questions. Where did the idea for that come from? And is the Alien franchise just the 80s in space forever? And I guess maybe answer the second question first.
Okay, well, the second question is that fear of war with Iran is evergreen and has been since the revolution. And really before then, as America was destroying that country, for British petroleum, So it's like I don't love the way that was handled, and I particularly don't appreciate a CIA agent writing a book gloating about it.
Yeah.
That's really rude.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, you can't ignore some of the things that have been done on that side as well.
Yeah.
And so I try not to take sides with a government, because that feels like the wrong side to take in the Aliens universe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's like
Aliens have a punk element to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Alien punk, maybe. It's kind of the opposite of the Trek universe, because you've still got these national divisions. Instead of Captain Picard, we get Paul Reiser, and the aliens aren't fun; they'll just eat your head.
I would much rather have Picard around, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Though regular Paul Reiser, I would rather have actual Paul Reiser to fictional Picard. How about that?
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
If you're listening, Paul Reiser, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sure he's a great guy.
He seems nice. But Iran, so to kind of answer the former question,
Yeah.
Oh, I will say that there was this hilarious thing that happened. I try not to read the comments, I really do, but Bloody Disgusting announced it into Charybdis and put the text of the synopsis on the back, and somebody goes, oh boy, somebody capitalizing on the recent, Iran thing. And it was like, dude, I wrote that pitch a year and a half ago.
Sure, right.
It's just when I was thinking of who's gonna be targeted or, have problems created for them, no matter what happens, it's gonna be a rocky road.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the thing about, I guess, Iran in that future that I felt really struck me was that they essentially, for the role-playing game, divided it up into 4 empires: the United Americas, the Three World Empire, the Union of Progressive Peoples, and to answer your 80s question.
Sure, yeah.
And the ICSC, the Interstellar Core Systems Colonies. And so the idea behind that last one is that the companies admit that they live on a lawless frontier where they provide all the resources and they just run themselves. But they have an agreed upon standard of human rights and a union between themselves that they will attack outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
When I say attack, I mean defend themselves from outsiders is really probably a better way to put it.
Sure.
So mutual defense treaties and all that stuff, but it's for companies because, let's be real, that's who actually runs things in the alien universe. And sometimes our universe. A lot of times our universe, but we wish it wasn't that way. So so Iran, where they fall, are they going to fall with the United Americas? Probably not. Are they going to fall with the Union of Progressive Peoples, the other superpower that tried to overthrow them? Probably not. The idea of them siding with the British Empire is hilarious. So going into business for themselves, they have a lot of nationalized industry already that they took back to kind of try and rectify the British petroleum situation.
Right.
So anyway, there was a lot of research that went into which country I was going to pick, but I knew that the story was going to be America doesn't handle things perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I can see that. That old saw. Okay.
Right. And you have to read it to find out the rest of the story.
All right. Well, I've heard nothing but effusive praise for both of these books, and if the listeners are Alien fans, they should certainly check them out. But let's talk about your upcoming DS9 novel, Revenant, which comes out in December. And I believe that this is the first DS9 novel since 2005 to be set within the years of the series and not after its conclusion. And even though it follows familiar characters, it seems like a majority of it is set off the station and outside of familiar locations. Is that true?
That is true. I was really excited to do that because they said I could write anywhere I wanted.
Nice.
when they invited me, and I was just blown away because it was like, they were like, we have one person that we would want you to write, and I was like, oh my god, this is where I'm going to have to turn them down. I want to write a Dax book, and they're not. And they were like, Jadzia Dax from Deep Space Nine. I'm like, you guys know that show's off the air, right? Like, but okay, yeah, like, yeah. And I mean, they, and they put on the table a decent offer, and it was really excellent. To get that opportunity to write this character that I really do love dearly. I have this, I don't know, Twitter diatribe, I guess, about how much her coworkers really value her. And looking at the episode Facets, which I actually maybe we should talk about Facets a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Like Facets and Equilibrium. If you want to go do like your homework for the show, watch Facets, Equilibrium, and like Way of the Warrior 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then for anyone who's like, you're gonna read the book and you're gonna go, that doesn't last longer than a day, and I'm gonna say, go watch Field of Fire.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can figure out what I'm talking about, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have to be really cryptic. They haven't told me what I can say.
Yeah, you don't want to get in trouble. Just the other day, you tweeted out the cover for Revenant, and I have to say, this is a good-looking cover. This would be a great poster.
Oh yes, I know. I love it so much. And you know what? It reminds me of those classic 1920s and 30s Monaco posters.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, it fits right in. It fits right in. And I'm just thinking like I need a big one of that, no text on it, like Cliff Nielsen in my background there.
Yeah.
Because I love that cover. It was great. And Kira looks so fierce.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no racing cars that we know of in Star Trek, but it definitely has that feel to it.
I know. I always kind of long for that moment of the petrol head moment. There's a lot of heavy machinery in a lot of my
like
books.
In Nemesis. Did you like the dune buggy scene?
Well, that's the problem. Is like some of that stuff really feels outside of Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you need a car?
Yeah, right.
A shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
Or why don't we just beam over there?
Yeah. They keep the car in a shuttlecraft, like they literally have a shuttlecraft.
Right? You could have landed us anywhere, you jerks.
Yeah.
But I mean, and isn't there a transporter pad on the shuttlecraft?
There must be. Yeah, I'm sure.
There is. There is. I know there is because they let me use it.
Oh, okay. Well,
let me tell you, they're not cool about that if you can't use it.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, like so as far as like plot is concerned, they were really, we want an Alex White original,
Sure.
We want you to bring your unique voice. And I was like, that's great. But as far as like the tech is concerned and all that stuff, continuity will be preserved.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really, the phaser works like this. And if you try to talk about, something that, if you look at the technical drawings, it probably would be, but you can't nail it down like that.
Yeah.
Because if you do, then the show might contradict you at the same time.
Yeah, right.
And that's no good. And they get real sensitive about, like the Trill. For example, I was like, do they have a religion?
Oh, interesting.
They certainly have a lot of esoterica.
Yeah, they do.
And so it's like, yeah, they certainly think about life after death, right?
They must, yeah.
And I was like, so what is it? And they're like, it hasn't been established, and you may not establish it. So enjoy.
Yeah, well.
So that was, and sometimes it's like that though. And you just kind of have to say like, okay, well, I'm still going to deliver a dynamite experience despite that. I'm going to find a way around all these hurdles. And there are many technical hurdles in writing for Star Trek.
It's good that they're guiding you, though. And, you're writing like at a time.
Grateful.
Yeah, you're writing at a time we're all familiar with. You're smack dab in the middle of DS9. I don't envy the Discovery.
My favorite time.
Yeah. Well, I don't envy the Discovery writers who have to write both, pre-TOS and then in the far, far future. So they've got to preserve past canon and future canon. Like the people that edit that must be on danger money.
Yeah, well, right. And then you're thinking about what happens when a next generation character references something from before then and you didn't have it in your research.
Yeah, right.
And it's stuff like that you have to be really, really careful about. And this is one of the ways in which writing for Star Trek is so different than writing for Alien, because the only thing we care about in Alien is the alien.
Yeah.
Or the Colonial Marines. If you like Colonial Marines, by the way, you still will probably enjoy Into Charybdis, because I had a lot of Marines consult on it, and
nice.
We love. I personally really enjoy working with those folks. So anyway, check it out if you like Colonial Marines as well.
Absolutely.
But those are so sort of thoroughly interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek, it's like, this is the size of this warp core. We have technical drawings already. This is the distance this ship can travel and the speed at which it can travel. Though I did get the whole like ships travel at the speed of plot speech, which was great.
Yeah. Whether it's Star Trek or Alien, sometimes they freeze themselves or they go into hypersleep to travel, and sometimes you get the impression that it's a long, long way, and other times it's just like a couple, like 6 weeks, like in Aliens.
And it's funny because I got to watch that cause like a fan fan kind of conniption start and resolve itself.
Okay.
Because they were like, okay, so I'm just trying to figure out where the Astropuerta de Juarez is. And I was like, it's in Juarez, Mexico.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're like, no, that has to be a satellite station because in order to make it to Charybdis, they would have had to have left here by this time. And I was like, yeah, well, it's on Earth, so I got it wrong. Sorry.
Well, it's a 2-hour ride to the airport, and then
Yeah.
you have to
Right, and so yeah, no beaming up an Alien. It's all the hard way. Everything is the hard way, which is fun in its own way. But yeah, so in other ways, it's like in Star Trek, it's great because you can just skip it.
Yeah.
I don't care where the food came from. We replicate
Yeah.
it. Skip it.
Yeah. I think the fans get that too.
Skip travel time, skip all that stuff as often as possible. Anyway, so and so they were like, well, maybe it's well, it's from 2179 or it's the year's 2179, so that makes it in the same class of speed as the Sulaco. And I was like, first of all, this is a civilian craft. Second of all, it's a civilian craft from the 30s.
Okay.
I said that in the text basically that it's the same age as the Nostromo. It gave some indicators. And they were like, what do we do? And I was like, but the Nostromo was towing the Cygnus barge, which is over like 1,000 times its volume. And the Gardenia was not. So could that now change your equations? And they were like, it works! There you go.
All right.
It's because they had Rolls-Royce engines.
Yes. Right. Yeah, no, it all works.
Literally, that's who made the Nostromo's engines, according to canon.
Oh.
I also enjoy using like real brand names in Alien. You can do that. Like people wear Reeboks and drive John Deeres. And...
Oh man, that is the most dystopic thing I can think of, that those corporations still exist. I bought this BattleTech game, which is a fun game, but I've never really been into the BattleTech universe. And there are certain things. There's some of the guns are named like Webleys and Brownings, and I'm like, please tell me in the year 3125 or whatever that these gun companies don't exist still.
But at the same time, 135 years, that's not. I mean, okay, we're 158 years away.
I suppose Colt and Browning still exist too. Then they're
exactly my point.
Oh my God.
Winchester. That's all. We're closer to that year than we are to the year they started.
The dystopia is here.
Yeah, exactly. Alien, you already live here.
You already live in Alien. That's what I'm getting out of this today.
Like, Star Trek's great. It's got... You don't have to worry about money in Star Trek. That's something that I think is really interesting. Is there scarcity economy and how it works. And it's so strange, but it's so, like, cool at the same time. It puts a premium on experience.
Absolutely.
Because it's like those are some of the only things that you can't replicate.
Yeah, experience is capital. There's social capital as well.
Right.
Two things that I think joined Trills would enjoy much more than other people.
I also think you have equipment capital, right? Like, nobody's replicating a starship. They have to build those.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you have a yacht, you still have a scarce resource somebody built you.
Right.
So what did you do for that? You paid Latinum, I bet.
Maybe. Yeah. We don't really know.
And you're not allowed to say.
Yeah, right. That's the big secret. Nobody gets to talk about it. Other than the wonderful Jadzia Dax, why did you want to talk about Equilibrium today?
Oh, well, because it's an episode that I felt sort of did that character both some great justice and some great injustice.
Interesting.
I love the idea of Terry, who really she's this amazing actor who carries poise and grace and gravitas. And the actor brought so much to the role and really delivered in every single way I felt. But at the same time, it's not fun if she's perfect. And I thought it was an interesting tack to kind of sort of introduce these character flaws into her that were perhaps from inherited.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that can sort of shift uh, the discussion of the symbionts being like, oh, is it about immortality? I don't know. It could also be about the generational impact of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
so if you have a murderer in your past, how much of that murderer is in you?
yeah,
And it was really interesting. And Duran was not really a character in that episode yet.
yeah,
They later tried to invent him, but unfortunately they tried to go this like cheap Hannibal,
yeah.
like
Literally that. Yeah,
they're like looking for like these like, you know, real grisly, he kills women
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of vibes. And I as I was watching that, I felt first of all that it's kind of ableist because people with mental illnesses are more likely to be the victims of violent crimes than the perpetrators.
Absolutely.
And so pinning that all on his mental illness was wrong of them. But at the same time, Alien 3 did that too.
Well, yeah,
They were talked about the double X chromos and how they're naturally super predators. And it's like,
yeah,
first of all, people with that actual mutation have been suffering under that stigma.
yeah.
You know, so thanks, Alien 3.
Yeah, sci-fi doesn't always keep up with the sci part of it.
Right, and they're wrong at the time.
Yeah.
And that's something to kind of note. But so they just didn't do the job that time.
Mm-hmm.
And Duran is a weak character.
Yeah.
And so Equilibrium was the moment where I was just like, this sucks. I love this character. I love this idea. I'm totally on board. And like everything that happens in that episode is canon. Okay. You can't change a thing that they've filmed ever.
Right.
It's not your job. Don't try it. They definitely let you know, like they don't mean to do this, but there's an obvious hierarchy of which writers have voices in the franchise.
Okay, all right, I can see that.
And at tie-in, you kind of you're relegated to either original work or sort of working within like the novelization of a movie, which I don't know about. For me, that sounds really daunting because I don't. It sounds terrifying to try and bring something new to somebody else's already pretty full thing.
Yeah, right.
But would I do it? Yeah, I'd do it. But it's scary. Equilibrium, right. So that's the moment that you kind of really feel like Duran. I feel like Duran starts off on the wrong foot, and I feel like I don't like the fact that this important character developing moment was thoroughly explored by Bashir and Sisko.
Right. She's on the table for like the last half
She's
of the episode.
unconscious
Yeah.
for the last half of the episode. She sleeps through everything that's important to her future, everything about her past. It's crap.
Yeah.
She should have been the one investigating her own problems.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, she has more problems. And that's where Equilibrium sort of served as the spark.
Fascinating. Let me just say that we are talking the DS9 episode Equilibrium. It first aired on October 17th of 1994, and the teleplay was by Rene Echeverria, longtime writer for the Trek franchise, and this was his first script for DS9 after leaving the writing staff of TNG, which had just completed its 7-season run. His first script for Trek was, of course, the 3rd season TNG episode The Offspring, which we've covered previously on the show. Rene has contributed to 41 scripts in total for TNG and DS9 combined, and also served as a story editor and the executive story editor for TNG seasons 6 and 7, respectively. The story for the episode is by Christopher Teague. This is Christopher Teague's only Star Trek credit, but he must have hit it off with Trek producer Michael Piller, because the two went on to co-create and write the ABC Family series Wildfire. Nana Visitor also had a regular role on that series. The episode is directed by Cliff Bole. I have officially run out of things to say about Cliff Bole. That's because he's directed so many of the episodes we've covered on the show. You know what? He directed the pilot of T.J. Hooker. I'm not sure if I'd said that previously.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Yeah. And the in-universe date for this episode, like many episodes of DS9, we don't know. No star date. And your assignment, Alex, if you can, is to give us a 25-word synopsis of Equilibrium.
Jadzia begins having hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
and discovers that perhaps there is more than one life. Okay. Let's see. She begins having hallucinations. She gets upset and unbalanced with her friends, and the deeper she looks, the more she finds that there's a life that's been obscured from her.
Period.
And
oh no, more.
Nope, we're good.
Okay, that's fine. I think that was perfect. I always love asking authors that question because they're about detail, and there's so many. They end up going over so many times because we got to get no, and then there's this part, and then there's this part.
Oh,
and there's a conspiracy in the Trill Commission.
Your ability to condense like that is your ability to pitch.
Yeah, sure, of course, yeah.
It's just when you said 25 words, I was like, ooh, I better do like a good job.
Well,
let me think about this.
Yeah. Here's some interesting facts from the memory banks about this episode, and feel free to jump in with anything you'd like to add.
I want to add, I'm very impressed if that was Renee's first day at the writer's room.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was coming off of 2 years of, or actually more than 2 years. I mean, he'd written since the third season of TNG.
Right, TNG. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but that's like first day on the new job, and it's like, okay, we want you to do this like backstory defining moment.
Yeah, right.
Right, and also this is going to be an expensive episode because we're going to leave Deep Space Nine a couple of times.
Sure, yeah. This was an episode of several firsts. It's the first time it's established that Sisko is from New Orleans. It's the first appearance of the Trill homeworld, which would not be seen on screen again until the third season Discovery episode Forget Me Not, 26 years later. It's also our first confirmation that Trills have spots from their head all the way to their toes, as we see Trill spots on Jadzia's feet in the episode.
I believe that was confirmed by the disgusting pickup line in the episode.
Yes, of course. Yes. It's not the first suggestion, it's just the confirmation.
Oh, okay. Well, I felt like she confirmed it though in that episode because somebody wrote her saying yes and being bashful.
Right. Yes.
I don't believe that's the character.
All you foot guys, this is the visual confirmation in this episode. It's also the first time we learn that non-joined Trill have surnames, which are replaced by the symbiont's name after joining, for example, Joran Balar. We never find out Jadzia's original family name in the episode or any of her previous hosts, but we do learn that Ezri's surname was Tegan in the 7th season. And supposedly the chess game that Dax and Sisko play at the beginning of the episode is based on the 1956 chess game between Bobby Fischer and Donald Byrne, a.k.a. the Game of the Century.
Wow.
They didn't really play it, of course. Just somebody on the set set it up that way.
Yeah, and then she bashes it aside.
She just, right, poor loser. Knocks it all over.
You cheated.
Let's talk about the guest stars in this episode. And this is a sad situation, but the main guest star in this episode, Lisa Baines, who plays Dr. Renhol, died yesterday, June 14th.
No!
Yeah, 2021, as of this recording, from injuries sustained from a hit-and-run accident in Manhattan on June 4th. And no arrests have been made at this time, but Baines attended Juilliard and appeared on Broadway several times during her career. She got her start in film with a small role in the 1984 movie The Hotel New Hampshire, an adaptation of the John Irving novel of the same name. She would go on to a very prolific career in film and television, appearing opposite Tom Cruise in Cocktail and Ben Affleck in the movie Gone Girl. She was a series regular on the Fox comedy Son of the Beach. She had recurring roles on King of Queens, 6 Feet Under, and Nashville, as well as frequent TV guest appearances and shows, appearing most recently this year in the Amazon original series Them. She's survived by her wife Catherine, and we're dedicating this episode to her.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just really blown away to hear that just randomly. And I don't know if Google just saw me Googling about this episode and threw that up into my suggestions.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't turned in the book yet, so I'm in the process of editing it, so I was wondering who I should dedicate it to.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. I did a lot of research on her for the book.
Really?
Yes, she was alive at the time.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, because I thought the actor was really great.
Yeah, she is
such a good job.
Jeff Magnus McBride plays Joran Balar in the episode, and McBride, or as he's sometimes known, Magnus, is an illusionist and magician who specializes in sleight of hand and manipulation of small objects. Magnus's stage shows use elements of kabuki theater, including masks like the ones that we see in the episode.
What?
Yeah, he found
that.
Yeah, this whole thing is based on his magic act.
That is so frustrating that there weren't more magic tricks in the episode.
I know. Like he doesn't.
What the heck?
Yeah, the mysterious figures like pick a card, any card.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's funny. I had to find an excuse to have that mask.
Really?
Well, it's like,
Yeah.
why does he have a mask?
Well, it's a metaphor, but I have no.
I mean, is it though? Like, there's that part where he actually kills the doctor.
That's true. That's not metaphorical
and he's
at all.
wearing a mask at that
true.
point, and I feel like it's a non-metaphorical mask.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway.
It's supposedly like Michael Piller saw his stage show and went, "This guy's great. Like maybe we can get something together here." And Christopher Teague, the guy that did the story for the episode, is a friend of both of them. So he asked Christopher Teague to work with McBride and make an outline based on McBride's act. So maybe McBride should get a credit, but no Writers Guild card, no credit. And the action in the episode, the removing the multiple masks, that's part of his act. So they.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, the original outline involved an intergalactic circus coming to Deep Space Nine with a magician who was a murderer, but nobody really liked that idea. So Renee Echevarria wanted to have Odo experiencing like these disturbing dreams, but Ronald D. Moore said, "Well, why don't we make it Dax, and then we can play up the masks as a metaphor for personalities."
Oh sure. Yeah, and I definitely did kind of get that impression that, well, at least at the first, the obfuscation was the memory block.
Yeah, right. The blocks. Yeah.
At the end of Equilibrium, it's revealed she has a memory block, and Dr. Rinholz tried to cover it up.
Yeah.
Which I think is really amazing because a couple of things happen at that point. For one, they were just going to let her die.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were going to murder her. But the question is, once you pull out the Dax symbiote, what are you going to put another memory block in before you put it in the next person?
Yeah, I guess you'd have to, or the next person is going to be, excuse me, I have a whistle to blow. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, we did let her die because we weren't sure if she'd be cool with it, but you seem cool. Like, probably not.
Maybe they pick somebody who'd be on board. Like, I always wonder when...
they should have let her in on it. She might have been on board.
Maybe she would have been on board. But when Varad steals the symbiote, a clamp from Gremlins 2, I always wonder, like, what Varad Dax would have been like. And so maybe they could have picked somebody who would have been like, no, I'm cool. I'll keep the secret.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. There are definitely people... there are a lot of Trill, I think, who would take the bargain.
Interesting.
Joining seems to be a hotly valued commodity.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
And Rinholz's response, because Sisko in that scene, I love how he's like, either you save my friend because she's my friend, or I'm going to destroy your national security.
Yeah, he does.
And I'm like, dude, you're a Federation officer. That is an act of war.
Picard wouldn't do this. Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, he's ready to, because Picard would, I think, like blow the whistle and then feel bad that Dax dies or passes away. But Sisko is 100% thinking about saving the old man. He wants to save his friend, and he'll leverage that information if he has to. What?
Good for him, because it is a terrible secret to preserve.
It is. Yeah.
And so I think it's great, and it's kind of cool because it puts this like idea forward that if the symbionts aren't fully in sync with the host, that you can track that with isoboramine levels, which is this neurotransmitter they made up just for that episode.
Yeah.
And that was good. That's a good that's useful for us other writers.
Okay.
Yeah, I love stuff like that though, where there's just a little system in place that's pretty simple. It's easy to understand.
Sure.
And it creates a dramatic tension because it's easy to use and come back to.
Yeah. Some of the writing staff had mixed opinions of this episode. Ira Stephen Bear praised Terry Farrell for her portrayal of Dax's personality shifts. He also liked the fact that the episode gets us farther and farther away from the creepy vibe that Julian and Dax had in previous seasons. Renee Echevarria said that the mystery of the show could have been a little more mysterious. And he also said specifically that it was a troubled script that they were sort of, rewriting as they went, and they were actually constrained by some things. They'd shot earlier days, things that were locked, so they had to write to that.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like stuff like that, it happens a lot, and I hate to like lay blame at anyone's feet, uh, but when I look at the Duran arc, I'm just like that should have been better.
Yeah, yeah.
And it sounds like they feel the same way. So that's nice at least.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't mean to offend.
No. I think the criticisms are accurate. I'm still glad the episode exists, if not
Sure.
solely for the introduction of wormy hot tubs, but also for the introduction of that vulnerability and the uncertainty in the Trill Gestalt psychology. Their whole thing is
Sure.
that they have this totality of life experiences and memories, and they're so skilled and they know so much. But the idea that there could be something blocked or forgotten in the catalog of all their experiences, that's a cool one. And as you mentioned, it's a good metaphor for repressed trauma or disassociation and unrealized parts of yourself.
Right, and I love the idea that it'll kill you if you don't face
Yeah,
it.
it will literally, in Star Trek, it'll literally kill you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Trill, they're a really cool idea. They're basically like nice vampires without the blood drinking or formal wear. Or like maybe they're like Tolkien elves, even more than Vulcans are.
That's probably yeah, that's probably a nicer metaphor. I think yes, but I mean there's also sort of a reincarnation element to it. And so because when you meet the people later. Oh, what I was saying earlier about facets, it's like all of her coworkers being willing to take one of the souls into their own bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, if those aren't people who understand your lifestyle,
Yeah.
I don't know who is.
Yeah.
Like if I was like, okay, I want to do a drag show. Also, I want you to be in the drag show with me. I have a few friends who would take me up on that, but
Right.
I don't think all my coworkers would.
Yeah, right. It must make Trills hard to write for. Because even in a universe where all of our Star Trek heroes are brave and capable and they're knowledgeable, but like they have just so many years of experience. I used to play the Star Trek role playing game, and the DS9 supplement would only let you be an unjoined Trill because it's too OP otherwise.
Yeah, right. Well, yes, but I will say the reality of writing for them is that they don't let you just conjure up memories from anywhere. You can't just be like, oh, and then she instantly remembered something that Audra did 6 lives ago.
Yeah, right.
I wish that would be awesome. That would be so easy as a writer. You just inject any memory you need.
You must be doing that still though when you're
To some extent,
yeah.
but like Rite of Emergence or a Jantara is usually required to get like good details.
Okay.
And there's a new rite I've gotten to invent a rite. And it's a very specific one. That's how I get away with approvals. It's just like it's so specific that it only happens for this thing. So if it bothers anyone, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
That's how you contribute. But yeah, the working with that, it comes with a lot of questions, especially about how characters think of themselves. She was recently a 104-year-old man.
Right, yeah.
So first of all, that's the reason she's excited all the time.
Yeah, right.
I'd just be like, if somebody told me I could feel well rested, I'd be ecstatic.
She's like, my back doesn't hurt. This is great.
Right. She's like, I'm not Curzon anymore. Yeah, and so because so many of her other lives were short, including her own, which again, that was weak. That was so weak.
Yeah.
The way that they exited her from the series, where it's like Gul Dukat just happens to show up and blast her the day she announces she's pregnant or whatever.
Right.
It's just like, oh my God, do you just hate women? What is this?
Yeah,
just in that instance,
it's not great. I will say though, if you got a character like this who can do that, who can die and come back, who can get married for the umpteenth time, can reunite with
make a thing out of it. It's not like a 5-minute deal.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Just set her up to get cold cocked at the end. Yeah. But I'm glad that they got to go through all those stages with a character like that, though.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you don't get to do a reincarnation at one point during the series, what's the point?
Yeah, right.
And so, like, it is true that from the second Jadzia walks onto the screen, that is a time bomb,
Yeah.
And because we know that the more we get to love Dax, the more we need to see Dax in another life.
Yeah.
So that is true. And I do agree overall with that transitional period. I just feel like the way in which it was handled so quickly and sort of as a side note to motivate Worf in the coming war.
Yeah, right, right.
And it's like, but you guys did so much good stuff, like that one mission where he dishonored himself for Starfleet.
Yeah, right. To save her.
God, that was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Worf and Jadzia have like the most amazing moments of all the characters in Deep Space Nine for me.
Yeah.
They have so many good touching moments, and like they really, I mean, they have a lot of moments where like where you're like, wow, these people are way different behind closed doors. Like they really
Yeah.
they're both like super straight laced and professional, and then constantly there will be these like references to like one time she broke Worf's arm in bed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, whoa, man. I mean, also, good job. That's Worf. he's tough.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the romantic tension I had to write. I just had to right before they were married.
Okay. Okay.
I really wanted to because yeah, so that's why I said, Equilibrium Facets, Way of the Warrior 1 and 2, and you're pretty much ready to go.
I was going to ask you, what do you think about the way that Trill society is depicted? I was going to say in this episode and in the franchise, but it's basically just this episode in the franchise, and also Forget Me Not, I guess, in Discovery.
Yeah, well, okay, I was a little disappointed when Discovery showed up and I didn't get more time on the Trill homeworld.
Yeah.
And mostly that's because I was writing the Trill homeworld at the time. So
okay, sure.
Like, if you don't mind,
you
please
got your
show
pencil
a little.
Out.
Can you please just pan left a little more?
Give me more.
But I know it's 1,000 years hence, or whatever. It's a lot of years hence.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get the impression they were doing well.
Yeah, I got the impression that because you talked about the ritual and the observance in their society, and I got the feeling that they had become more tribal almost. Like they're so sophisticated with the commission in this episode, and by the time Discovery gets there, they're like, the council does not grant you, join status, goodbye.
Right. What happened? It seemed so. Right. It seemed like they were a civilization in decline.
Yeah. I mean, things have been rough in the galaxy at this point, but still.
That's fair. Yeah, and I mean, I do have to wonder because I mean, it is a vibrant society, and it's really interesting. I think because you start to get into weird, like, what about legal questions? I mean, if how do you handle somebody who wants to testify against their own murderer, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously we need to hear what this person has to say, but at the same time, you can't exactly expect an objective.
Yeah.
And so it's, weird questions like that, or that kind of stuff.
If they own things like property or currency, do they continue to own it when they transfer hosts?
That would throw it into escrow.
Yeah. I mean, that would lead to like a concentration of wealth and power in those individuals.
I feel like you're not allowed to take anything between lives.
That would be good.
I think that's required.
Yeah.
That you don't.
Okay.
Now, that being said, a lot of people should be able to perform this surgery. It's actually so easy. A Federation doctor with no training did it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, or Crusher.
They established that in Next Generation, right?
Yeah.
It's that easy. They retconned a lot of that stuff because, I guess it wasn't as sustainable.
Right.
But that was one thing that they made really clear is that you could do this surgery in an emergency.
Yeah.
And they do for Ezri Tegan.
Right. Yep.
So it's not like an easy handoff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's, and that's pretty notable that you don't want to like have a symbiont always go back to the symbiosis commission every time, like they die way out there in the wild.
Yeah.
Then it's like an organ transplant kind of question. Who's in the system? Have they passed through the initiate program?
Yeah. The scheduling software of the future must be amazing. It's way beyond Outlook or whatever we use now. We also find out in this episode that apparently up to around 50% of Trill can accept symbiotes. I'm sure they don't have a solid number on that because they aren't researching it. They want to hide it. But we know that many more people can have this, and it's being kept from them. And so that sets up real class divisions in this sort of future enlightened society.
It does. Yeah. It does. It's really, well, what's cool about it is the reason why they want to preserve the secret is because they want to preserve the integrity of the Symbiosis Commission's mission. To keep the joinings purely motivated by the excellence of the individual.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you have this idea of like, oh, I'm going to add Einstein to Rear Admiral Grace Hopper to, like,
yeah, right.
And I postulate, I think that's how the Trill discovered warp.
Sure.
I would imagine that they were pretty quick to warp, actually.
Yeah.
Because they don't lose knowledge when they die as much.
Sure.
And so I think that, anyway, that the problem with the Symbiosis Commission is the same problem with every large organization. We have seen that it can be craven, that they will move to protect themselves as an organization before they will move to protect an individual who's reliant on them for her health.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, they're absolutely zealots in what they do.
Yeah.
And they take it to the point that like they make sure that like if you go and rejoined, right? If Dax ends up with her wife again, she'll be cast out forever. Who do you think enforces that?
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't get another joining forever. Seems like it would fall to one agency.
Right.
They do. I mean, they have a ton of power, and their field docents are people like Curzon, notorious for flushing people.
Yeah, right.
Promising young women like Jadzia.
Right, yeah.
So, and all because he loved her.
Well, yes, of course.
You were so lovely.
Oh, God. Here we go again.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I'm working on it.
Okay, yeah, you take care of that. We're relying on you.
Thanks. Well, so Curzon proves that these field docents don't make impartial decisions. They make very partial decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that the people who are chosen for joining are likely to look a lot like the people who have been joined.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the question becomes, whose culture are you preserving? And whose culture are you burying by not allowing access?
Yeah.
Right. And so these are things that it's just like, oh my God, I really want to get into that. And they're like, oh my God, you will not. Discovery's right there right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
right.
They want you to stay away from the active filming.
We talked at the beginning of the episode about the things that Trek either tries to slip in or the kind of emergent themes. And I don't think anybody would have nailed this as a solid capitalist critique 25 years ago. But I mean, that's exactly what it looks like right now. Just with Trill society having this rigid social structure with no mobility. And like poor people, like we meet Timor in the episode, and Timor, he's not going to get selected, but he's still motivated. It's not, it's like you can't get rich quick, I guess. Like he's not motivated by money, but he's motivated by supporting the apparatus, being the guy who is testing the water in the hot tub.
Well, that's how you got warp. That's how you cured cancer. That's how you, and
hopefully he can get that treatment when he gets cancer.
There are so many,
but he doesn't get to leave and go to warp. He hasn't seen the sun in years.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, just like I like the idea of this monastic order. I firmly believe those guys probably head back home. Guys, gals, and non-binary folks of all stripes. How about that?
Sure.
They probably all head to the caves at the end of the day and brew some alcohol.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. With the hot tub water. Yeah.
I love the amniotic fluid. It's my favorite. This beer tastes like somebody's mad at us.
Right. Yeah, right. A little sparky. Yeah.
That was something that was interesting. It was the electrostatic shocks and the way that they communicated.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting that they visualized it because, obviously that's not how electricity works.
Well, yeah.
But you wouldn't see it. Somebody would have to like dip their hand in the water and get shocked or something.
Yeah, I guess so. That was really neat, and that scene was very cathartic. And we talked before about how it doesn't, we don't have anything leading up to that catharsis. I wish there had been one or two more scenes, or maybe some kind of dialogue that she gets to have with Durand during the episode to have that pay off. But in a different world, that's a really nice end.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Well, you can just say there's more to the story.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely things that we don't see yet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So now we can, that's what books are for.
Right. Yeah, exactly. A good commercial for you.
Yeah, buy Revenant.
Yeah. Coming out in December.
That's right. I do though. I think that there was a lot that needed to be kind of explored there.
Yeah.
And they skirt it. They do. And I feel like they want to deal with it, but I also think that they were being told to compete with a war show. And I think that there was a lot of pressure to not do these kind of close interpersonal cool stories. But for me, that's one thing that Star Trek does really well.
Absolutely.
So the thing that's cool about writing Dax is past lives, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And who else has a lot of past lives is like detectives and noir stories. Right? They're always, I used to be a soldier, or I used to be a boxer, or I used to be,
Right.
And so this idea of investigating the distant past and being kind of further and further and further drawn into this mystery, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because it has all the graphic design of Star Trek, but it's a very noir plot. And so if you go into it reading and kind of expecting, The Long Goodbye or something, Raymond Chandler-esque, you might find that you enjoy yourself.
Sure.
Because that's the thing that I like. I do a lot of explosions and ships coming out of orbit and all this other stuff in most of my books.
Yeah.
But when you write for Star Trek, and when I write for Deep Space Nine, I don't want it to feel like Deep Space Nine made a $10 million movie or a $500 million movie, whatever the current going rate is.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want it to feel like an episode of the show.
Yeah.
I want it to be your favorite episode that was never made. And so I think that sort of one of my favorite things is when the show tries to refilter itself through another lens. I really enjoy that. Lower Decks is great about looking at itself through an anachronistic lens.
Sure. Yeah.
And saying, really challenging a lot of old Star Trek.
Yeah.
And so, I really, I don't know. I like to sort of attack it from that perspective as well, relensing it.
I like that.
Yeah. I want her whole story to seem way different after you read it. It won't conflict with canon at all, I promise.
Yeah. But I mean, a character like that, there's always new layers to the onion that you can peel away.
Yeah. I will say it will conflict with the lives of Dax.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
I was told that I didn't have to worry about all of the novels because there are over 900 Star Trek novels.
Yes, there are.
So I was like, great, that's the only way I can take this job.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, when you meet like David Mack, it's so intimidating because he knows everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, for me, it's like, I just love the show and I've had a good time, but am a mostly regular person.
Right. Yeah. I can't do this.
I'm so impressed with your ability to know that. And it's always really daunting to meet the fans. And so what I always try to remind myself is like the value you bring is your ability to develop plot and characters. Don't worry about it,
Yeah, yeah. And it's your individuality.
They don't want you to explain the warp core.
Yeah, they don't need that. Yeah. Well, I could go on all day talking with you. This has been really great. But I wanted to say before we go, is there anything that you want to say about the episode? Anything we've left unsaid at this point?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I really wanted more piano.
Yeah, there could have been
more. Way more piano. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I didn't know you could play, and I'm like listening to her, and I'm like, that doesn't look like she can. I don't know what you're talking about.
She can, but I did. Yeah. I read that the composer had very little turnaround time. They came to him and said, hey, we need a thing. So they turned it around really
Right.
fast and then taught it to her.
Yeah, and that guy looked at his synclavier and goes, "Okay, I gotcha."
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, "This theme, it's so haunting," and I'm like, "I'm really not haunted over here, you guys."
Just a little bit disturbed, not haunted. Yeah.
But I love the whole musical angle, and so you better believe I love that about Duran.
Yeah. And you're a
Um,
musician yourself.
I am. It's quite an accident, but it was like I started out trying to play Decemberist songs on just a regular acoustic guitar.
Okay.
And one day, the company that I was working at, somebody said I was making a video for them, and I said, "How much are we going to pay for the needle drops?" And they were like, "We're not going to do the needle drops. You can do music, right?" And I was like, "I play folk guitar. This is about rockets." They're like, "So you can't do it?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 buddy."
Hold on. Nobody said anything about that.
So now I it's been a long journey, but I did a lot of corporate freelancing and stuff, and so you'll hear, oh, well, you won't, but I basically made a bunch of music for corporate nonsense videos, like sales videos,
Yeah,
and
okay.
training videos, stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's super fun. There's nothing that's better than getting to like leave your day job to go hang out in a recording booth for 20 hours, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and just like play with your synthesizers and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Nobody minds. You're actually getting paid for this.
Yeah.
And then you got to go back, but that's okay because maybe I'm not a wellspring of musical talent. I bet that composer would do a much better job than I would at basically everything.
Well, maybe musically, not writing though.
No, fair enough.
Try
Everybody
writing
has their
music,
own
man.
lane. I will say that is one of the reasons why John Carpenter is like a hero.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because it's just like that guy compromises not at all.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll just do it all myself.
Yep. Yeah.
And and if you can do it all yourself, and it's like he wrote the Halloween theme. He wrote all these things we know, and they're like total earworms. And he and his sons, by the way, tour the country playing on synthesizers.
Yeah.
And just playing the original stuff, but like remixed for like a more modern sensibility. And I was like, that's the dream. Oh my God, traveling around playing shows with your kids?
Sure. Well, I mean, first step.
Synthesizer?
Yeah, first step, score 5 or 6 of the best sci-fi movies of all time, and then go on tour.
I thought you were going to be like, first step, score. You need some kids.
Yeah, well, get that too. Get the kids, get the films, make Dark Star, then you're off.
No, that's right. But yeah, some really great films. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, writing, directing, and doing the music. Come on.
And nice guy too, I hear. Really nice guy.
Oh yeah. I hear that he kind of like walked out of a party with all these modern directors because he didn't understand them very much.
No.
It was really they were kind of being very sort of elitist.
Oh,
I
okay.
guess.
Okay.
And he felt that he was like, you guys need to learn to pull up your sleeves and do the job.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, if anybody can tell you that, it's John Carpenter.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen to Uncle John.
Oh, love that guy. 7-minute fight scene. And
Yeah.
endless entertainment in all varieties.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk My Space Dad Can Beat Up Your Space Dad. Who's your favorite captain and why?
Oh, gosh. It's got to be Sisko easily.
Sure.
Because he has so much range. I mean, Picard hates kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I love Jean-Luc. I do. But the fact is that you invited a girl you liked onto the ship and you didn't like her kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe not Picard. Anyway, but anyway, Sisko is wonderful and he's sensitive in all these great ways. But I mean, from the moment he sits down across from Patrick Stewart and both of them have these incredible expressions between them where you're like, oh my God, this is the entire story. It's just you two staring at each other.
Right.
But I feel it.
Yeah.
because we just saw your wife die. And it was like, and Avery Brooks's performance in that scene, actually, where she dies, his scream really was quite emotional, really haunting.
Yeah.
Great job. And so he has a certain properness and swagger in a way that I feel like the other captains don't quite have. Like, if I was going to screw with one of the captains, it wouldn't be him or Janeway.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right? Like, if I was going to, if you make an enemy out of him, I think Kirk's too busy, so that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Right? And Picard's not going to come after you unless you actually attack someone. Yeah, no, I think Sisko, though, oof, I would not want to make an enemy of Sisko. He'll burn the planet.
Yeah, he has. Now that we've reached the end of the show, you'll receive a commission and the rank of ensign. What department on the ship do you work in?
Oh my god. I feel like operations. I feel like I need to be repairing stuff.
Sure.
And doing, like, I would probably enjoy hanging out with that crowd.
Yeah.
They seem really down to earth. They're the least likely to encounter time ghosts. Like
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They stay near the cool tech most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you get like LaForge, and O'Brien, I love the character. Oh my God, what a deep character.
Yeah.
Would I want to be his friend? I don't know about that one. He doesn't think the Jim Hadar are people.
Yeah. Well, got a problem there.
Right? Like he's super did an evil thing in that episode. And I back it. I think that's a great thing to have written.
Yeah.
I would not have had their relationship recover fully ever from that. Bashir and O'Brien.
Yeah, right. I think O'Brien would be the funnest to hang out with outside of work.
Oh, fair.
And Geordi would be like a tough but fair boss, but I wouldn't want to have a drink with him necessarily.
Oh yeah, well, he doesn't seem like a drinker.
Or yeah, but I don't really know what he does like when he gets off.
I feel like you could go play Settlers of Catan with.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe that.
Like or he'd be like, oh yeah, I love holo tennis, and you're gonna be like, oh, I don't really want to go get an asthma attack on holodeck.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Have fun. Yeah, it's nice that you're perfect.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Right. Yeah. Well,
yeah, you look great.
Yeah, look good in those shorts. Well, Ensign White, thanks for joining me to talk about Star Trek and the Star Trek universe. And if people want to continue the conversation, they can at EISTpod on Twitter and the Enterprising Individuals Facebook page. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Alex White Books, and you can find me at alexrwhite.com. And if you read The Salvagers, there's a free novella on that site in six installments, and they're all out, so you can just read them all back to back.
Nice.
About the origin of Orna Sokol.
All right, so people can go check that out. Revenant is out December 21st of this year, 2021. And
great Christmas present.
Yeah, great Christmas present. Anything you can tell us about? You're working on a new book, new trilogy, I think?
I am. I'm working on another trilogy for Orbit. They wanted me back under contract after Salvagers, but they'd kind of said I don't know, like they delayed it a lot. And so when I was writing the Salvagers third book, I was like, I don't know if they're going to sign me for more books when I start this thing. And once I start the book, I'm not going to change the plot that much. So I'm going to pretend like I'm not going to get any more books out of these people.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say everything I wanted to say and tie up every loose thread.
Sure.
Just like, let's have a huge explosive ending because we know that the series might not make it.
Right.
And what was cool about that was they were like, we love that. You did end the series though a bit there.
Yeah.
What do you want to do now?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. So I have a very musical novel getting put together, but it's interesting because it's like rock and roll and giant robots.
Ooh.
And it's got, it's a little bit Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a little bit Evangelion. It's a little bit, of course, Bebop's always on it.
Yeah.
I started trying to teach myself because the main character is a jazz pianist. And So all the characters are musicians. That's what enables them to interface with the machines.
Oh, okay.
And it'll make sense in context, I promise.
Okay. It sounds
all
cool.
of my novels are pretty trippy.
That's what makes them so unique.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do like to blend genres and go pretty wild. And this one's really wild as well. It's going to be, but it's like Trek, it's in the sparkle future, right? It's a bit,
yeah.
It's pretty nice there. Everybody seems pretty happy, mostly. It has, mine has an economy and stuff, because I don't know how to deal with out cash. I just don't. I'm just not that clever. I can't dodge that question. Was 40-something years?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We have that problem too, society, but yeah.
Well, yeah, Trek got away with it and the statute of limitations expired is what happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just like we don't have to explain it. It's too late.
Yep. People just know it now. Yeah.
And I was told just don't ask. I was told to always to copy the famous answer to how do your Heisenberg uncertainty compensators work? You say very well.
Yes, they work perfectly. And they work every time.
My editor, Margaret Clark, gave me that story, and it is some other writer, I don't know, but it's a great response.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining me, and we're signing off until the next mission. Hailing frequencies closed. Backtracking is back for an all-new season. Hi, I'm Caliban.
And I'm Gooey Fame.
And we'd like to introduce you to Backtracking, the podcast that explores the real-world inspirations behind your favorite episodes of Star Trek.
From historical events to classical literature to blockbuster films, we go where no pod has gone before to seek out the origins of classic Trek tales.
Did you know, Gooey, that the TNG episode Too Short a Season was an allegory for the Iran-Contra affair?
Yeah, only sweatier. Did you know that the Enterprise episode Regeneration was an homage to the John Carpenter film The Thing?
Archer and T'Pol freezing to death over a bottle of whiskey would have been a controversial ending.
As a dog lover, Archer would not like The Thing, I'm guessing.
Oh my god, movie night is canceled. Join us every other Thursday for a journey back to the beginnings of the Trek universe.
Backtracking is available wherever you get your podcasts.
No, Porthos!